Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a whole stack of interesting sources, articles, research our notes, and really boil them down to the key insights, the stuff that matters for you. And today, wow, we've got a really fascinating mix. We're covering everything from cutting-edge science, big geopolitical moves, and even looking up at the stars. Okay, let's unpack this.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is, how we try to turn all that raw information into something more meaningful. We're looking for the patterns, trying to connect the dots, really helping you understand the why behind it all, giving you that context you might miss just scanning headlines.
Precisely. And speaking of breakthroughs, let's jump right in with something that honestly sounds a bit sci-fi, but it's real. The world's first cloned yak.
That's right.
Yes, scientists over at China's Zhejiang University pulled this off. The calf was delivered by a C-section up in Tibet. And here's a detail I found interesting. It weighed 33.5 kilos at birth, which apparently is heavier than your average newborn yak. That's quite something, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That birth weight, it's pretty striking. It kind of speaks to the precision they achieved. They use techniques like whole genome selection and advanced somatic cell cloning.
Okay, somatic cell cloning. So like Dolly the sheep, but a yak.
Essentially, yes, some fundamental principle. And when you think about the implications, well, it's not just a cool science experiment. This could be really important for animal husbandry. Think about breeding animals that are more resistant to disease, for instance. And then there's conservation, too, preserving valuable genes, maybe for endangered species, especially with, climate change impacting habitats.
Right, so for conservation, are we thinking this could genuinely boost populations? Or is it maybe even a step towards that whole de-extinction idea people talk about sometimes?
Well, de-extinction is still very much experimental territory, lots of hurdles there. But yeah, successes like this with the yak, they definitely move us closer. They refine the techniques, give us invaluable data. It helps us understand the genetics better, the challenges, the practical side of managing populations or preserving genetic diversity. It's a significant step in our ability to sort of intervene genetically.
Incredible stuff. Human ingenuity really changing things. Okay, let's shift gears now completely. Let's look upwards actually, to something natural, cosmic. It's prime time for the Perseid Meteor shower.
Ah, yes, a great celestial event.
It really is. It technically started back on July 17th, but the big show, the climax, is overnight August 12th to 13th, and they're saying we could potentially see up to 150 meteors per hour.
That's a fantastic rate. A really nice contrast to the yak cloning discussion. Now, for anyone listening who wants to catch this, a couple of practical points. 150 an hour sounds amazing, but there might be a bright full moon around then, which, could wash things out a bit.
Ah, okay, good point. So less than ideal viewing conditions potentially.
Potentially, yeah. So your best bet really is to get away from city lights, find a dark, rural spot if you can, then face northeast. And patience is key. The rates tend to pick up significantly after about 11 p.m. local time, so stay up late.
I remember trying to watch these as a kid. You lie out on the grass and you maybe see one or two faint streaks. The 150 an hour just sounds intense. You mentioned an aha moment earlier. What is that when you're watching something like this? Is it just the sheer number of meteors?
It can be the numbers, sure, but often it's something more. It's that feeling you get when you just stop. You look up at this huge ancient darkness filled with these streaks of light, and you feel, well, connected to something way bigger than yourself. It's humbling, and kind of inspiring too.
That makes sense. A cosmic perspective. Okay, let's bring it back down to Earth now to some complex human dynamics. Let's talk about the Druze community. There's a really distinctive group, ethno-religiously speaking, and they've been in the news recently. Our sources mentioned Israel taking some actions for their protection in Syria. Just for background, the Druze are Arabs. Their faith is an offshoot of Shia Islam, and they mainly live across Syria, Lebanon, and Israel.
Right, and what's really fascinating and quite complex about the Druze is their loyalties, their political positions. It often puts them in a very unique spot in the region. Like in Israel, they're known for being quite loyal to the state. You see a very high proportion of Druze serving in the Israeli military, for example.
Okay, loyalty to Israel. But they're also in Syria and Lebanon.
Exactly. And their situation varies. Thinking historically, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, the Druze community in southern Syria, they reportedly resisted attempts by Damascus to impose authority there.
Interesting. So that resistance, is that primarily about seeking Druze autonomy, or more tied up in the specific regional politics and power struggles happening at that time?
It's likely a bit of both, really.
Yeah.
Autonomy is definitely a factor. Given their unique identity, the Druze have historically tried to, preserve their way of life, their self-governance wherever they are. You could see their loyalty in Israel through that lens, too, maybe a pragmatic way to secure their community status. And in Syria, after Assad, that resistance strongly suggested a desire for local control, yeah, to avoid outside interference during all that instability. It really raises that bigger question, doesn't it? How do these distinct cultural identities, especially when they span borders, influence stability and conflict? It's a dynamic we see played out globally.
It absolutely is a really crucial point. Okay, shifting focus again, let's turn to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. We have reports from the Russian Defense Ministry. They've stated they've captured 3 villages on different parts of the front line. Specifically, Popyov in eastern Donetsk, Dektyrin up in northeast Kharkiv, and Kamyansky down in the southern Zaporizhia region.
Right. And these localized captures, they're happening within this wider context of diplomatic pressure and military aims. For example, we've seen reports that the U.S. has effectively given Russia a 50-day window, announce a ceasefire, or face, well, heavy sanctions.
Okay, so a deadline from the U.S.
Seems so, according to reports. So these village captures, while maybe not decisive on their own, strategically speaking, they matter for morale, they show operational capability is still there, and they could potentially influence, leverage in any future ceasefire talks.
So how do these smaller tactical moves on the ground, how do they fit into that bigger picture? Especially with things like a U.S. ultimatum potentially hanging over things. Are they just tactical, or do they signal something more about where the conflict is heading?
Well, they're tactical moves, certainly, but within a larger strategic game, absolutely. Every village taken, however small, it adds to a narrative, right?
Mhm.
Progress for one side, loss for the other. That influences domestic opinion, international views, and the U.S. deadline, that's clear diplomatic escalation, trying to force a change in calculus by raising the potential cost of continuing the fight. So you've got this constant interplay between the ground situation and the high-level international moves. Each one affects the other.
Okay, understood. And finally today, a significant move on the counterterrorism front. The U.S. has officially declared the Resistance Front, TRF, as a terrorist organization. This group was identified as being responsible for that awful Pahalgam terror attack, which tragically claimed 26 lives.
Yes, and the designation itself is quite specific. It's not just one label. TRF is now listed as both a foreign terrorist organization, an FTO, and also a specially designated global terrorist, or SDGT.
Okay, 2 designations.
Right. And the U.S. State Department was very explicit in linking them, stating that TRF is essentially a front group, a proxy for Lashkar-Taiba or Lati. The stated reason given, according to the U.S. source, was, and I'm quoting roughly here, that these actions show the administration's commitment to enforcing President Trump's call for justice after the Pahalgam attack.
So practically speaking, what does a designation like this actually do? Does it immediately cut off funding or really hamper their operations, especially if they're tied to a bigger group like Lati?
Oh, absolutely. It carries real weight. Practically, it means any assets they might have in U.S. jurisdiction get frozen. U.S. citizens, companies, they're generally banned from doing any business with them. Members can be denied entry to the U.S. And importantly, by publicly linking TRF to letter T, it strengthens the international legal case against both. It signals to other countries, look, this is a recognized proxy network, which usually leads to more cooperation in tracking funds, sharing intelligence, that sort of thing. The aim is definitely to degrade their ability to operate.
Wow, okay. We've certainly covered a lot of ground today. Quite the journey. From, the science of cloning a yak to looking up at the Perseids, then digging into the Druze community's complex position, getting updates from Ukraine, and understanding this U.S. terror designation. It really has been a deep dive across a whole range of information shaping our world. So what does this all mean? I'm always interested thinking about you listening. What part of this really stood out or resonated?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I think it shows just how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Even things that seem totally separate, a scientific breakthrough, a geopolitical situation, a natural event, they're all threads in this huge global tapestry. And understanding how they weave together, well, that takes ongoing critical thinking,
Oh,
looking beyond just the surface headlines.
absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with,
Yeah.
something to chew on. How do these moments of really rapid scientific change, like successfully cloning a large mammal, how might that intersect with or even influence the complex dynamics of global conflicts or the identities and loyalties of human communities like the Druze? Just consider the unexpected ways these different threads might be intertwined in our world, shaping things now and shaping the future, often in ways we're only just starting to see.